Hi, everyone, and welcome to Not Just for Boys, celebrating women in Transformers. I'm your host, Lita, and today we're going to sit down in a roundtable-esque discussion with three amazing women in Transformers. Over the next hour, you're going to hear their stories and experiences as women working in Transformers, their thoughts on the changing landscape of the franchise, and their advice to up-and-coming professionals. Joining me tonight is a dream panel, and I am geeking out right now. So going over this virtual style table we got going on here, we have Transformers Cyberverse screenwriter Mae Catt, the
Hey, everybody.
Hi, the IDW Lead Artist for Transformers War World, Anna Malkova, and I keep talking over everyone. And the voice actor for Lita One in Netflix's Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy, Linsay Rousseau. Hello, everyone. So excited. And I'm just like in my head picturing deafening applause from the audience right now.
Oh, for sure.
So manifest that energy. Leave it to the voice actor.
There's always a yes queen in the background of my
Yes, queen. There we go.
That's going to be the theme for today's panel. So hope you guys can hang. But to start off, for people who may not know you as well or haven't had a chance to see the other panels you've been on already, we're just going to go around and do some quick introductions here. And we're going to start with Mae. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, Icon. Hello, Internet. My name is Mae Catt. I obviously worked on Transformers Cyberverse seasons 2 and 3. And I have done other work. I wrote on Marvel Rising, Marvel Spider-Man, DC's Young Justice, and a couple other things I can't talk about. I think my Twitter bio says I write horror movies and cartoons, which is also very true. So if you happened to have Quibi for the 6 months you could have Quibi, I wrote a Sam Raimi produced horror short for his show 50 States of Fright. So hopefully someone can see that again one day.
I heard, was it HBO or someone is taking all the Quibi shows? Yeah, someone is.
It's above my pay grade. I don't know.
There, we'll go read Variety after. It's got to be somewhere.
And that's me.
Next up, how about we shoot it over to Anna?
Hello, I'm Anna Malkova, and I'm the lead artist on the Transformers 2019 IDW comic book series. And I draw a lot, and that's probably I draw every day. I've been working on the series for the past 2 years, and this is my first professional work in the Western media, and this is probably was my bucket list goal for like the past decade. So I don't even know where I go from here. Who knows?
It's like only up.
Batman, I guess.
It's just gravy.
There's
from
only
here
way
on
up.
Just up.
So yeah, I'm super excited to join all these wonderful ladies, and yeah, that's me.
Oh, yay! All right, Linsay, round it out for us.
All right, guys, I'm Linsay Rousseau, voice of Lita One in Transformers War for Cybertron. And so I'm a voice actor, mocap performer, other stuff, D&D streamer. I host a talk show every Wednesday that covers tabletop gaming and all things geeky. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's so perfect. And you know, it's so incredible just hearing like all these different backgrounds, and it's just making my mind start to percolate, you know? It's just with all these different avenues and forged these incredible careers within Transformers professionally and other avenues, obviously. And, you know, that's like any fan's dream, right? To like to be able to work in something that you love and are a fan of, you know? So in a similar vein, we have a question from Layla Mayorga, who asks, what impacted you to end up working with Transformers? And was there any sort of motivation or end game?
Should we keep going in the round table?
Sure, you know what? Let's do that.
I crave structure, so that would help me out.
Yes, me too.
Great. Very quickly, I ended up animation was never like my end goal. I was in the live action space for a long time, trying to, you know, doing that grind. And I ended up on Transformers through a variety of reasons, but the funniest story I think is I saw in the trades that Hasbro and Allspark Pictures, which is their live action division, were looking to reboot the G.I. Joe franchise the millennial way. And I ended up calling my agents and I was like, hey, I'm the only millennial I personally know that loves G.I. Joe. Could I please get a meeting? And I was only like 25. So there's no way that like this big studio is going to give a franchise like that a tentpole picture to a 25-year-old. But like, man, God bless those execs. They let me talk about Cobra Commander for like an hour straight.
Yes.
And I actually like walked out of that meeting and walked like, down the block on the Paramount lot, called my friend, like not in tears, but near tears, about being like, I think that went really well. And I'm really excited. And as I was doing that, a Paramount lot tour stopped right in front of me and got out and did a walking tour. So they all had to pass me as like my dreams were coming true. I had to just be like, this isn't a bit, I swear. And I ended up, the live action department was like, hey, we don't really have anything for you right now. Would you like to meet the animation department? And I was like, absolutely. And then I, through a series of misadventures, ended up from that moment onto Transformers Cyberverse. So only by being a nerd for G.I. Joe did I get on Transformers.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool.
What about you, Anna? What's your story?
Oh my God. Like, I am a Russian person from Moscow. So it's already kind of wild. But also, I started out as a graduate of city planning baccalaureate of the Moscow State Architectural University. And then I thought, like, I don't want to do architecture. My pea brain can't handle it. So I went into video games, and I've been doing mobile video games for the past 10 years. And if you've seen David Marriott's panel about the editing and stuff, I pretty much do the same stuff, but in video games right now. Like, it's still my main job. But also for the past decade, I've been a huge fan of Transformers, starting from Last Stand of the Wreckers. A friend of mine lended me a book, and that's basically how it ended. I just fell in love with it, and I started reading everything. Like, every day on my commute, I just whipped out any issue of comics, or if there weren't any comics, fanfic, like a morning paper, and I just like completely invested in that world. And I've been doing a lot of fan arts and stuff. So when the previous continuity of IDW ended, I reached out to the editor, and I was like, hey, maybe I can like do a cover. Like, I really want to do one maybe. And he's like, I want to draw some comics. And that's how I ended up here.
Aw,
Amazing.
that's
And I still keep
amazing.
doing it, and I don't want to stop anytime soon. There's like a lot of story we got to cover.
Yes, and we want you to keep doing it. We love you. Like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
all right, Linz, you know what I'm gonna ask.
I mean, a little different. So, on the acting side of things, we auditioned for everything. So this was obviously, an audition that I had to do. But, moving back before that, I was a performer my whole life, but, went to college, and I was in the army, and then went to graduate school. And then finally was just like, I'm miserable. I'm stressed out. So I went back to acting. I did theater again for about 6 years. And then, I was really into video games, and I remember I was playing through Mass Effect, and I was playing through his Fem Shap, and I just had this moment where I was like, this is what I want to be doing. And Jennifer Hale is kind of an idol of mine. She's the voice of Fem Shep, among other amazing characters. And I was lucky that one of the theater companies I was in, the husband of the founder was a video game sound designer. And, I talked to him, and he helped hook me up with an agent and do demos and everything. And just it kind of, snowballed from there. And every year's been better. And most of my work has been in, video games and commercials. But yeah, this was an audition. It was codenamed when I got it. I had no idea what it was. I was just like, oh, cool, this soldier character. This is awesome. And then when the callbacks came around 3 months later, I'd totally forgotten about the audition. They're like, yeah, this is Transformers. And I was like, I wish you hadn't told me that, because now I'm freaking out a little bit. I was like, you could have told me this after the callback. No, so it was really exciting. And then obviously when I was cast, I was like, I realized and then reading through the script, I was like, oh, Alita's not a minor character in this so far. Like, she's doing a lot. So let's do this. And yeah, it was definitely freaking out a little bit though.
Lita
Like,
is
what-
the main character of the series.
Yes, like, can we get an amen in the chat for that? Like,
I'm the only
finally.
one who actually does stuff. Like everybody else just like pivotting between one main
Yeah.
pain to another.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go, pine over my past relationship with Megatron. And meanwhile, Lita's like, dude, can we finish this war?
Our
Can
planet
you
is
wrap
dead.
it up,
Come
Liz?
on.
Hey, I know you're having a moment, but we're in a war.
It's like,
Wanna wrap it up
let's
there?
stop
People are
walking into
dying.
ambushes. Let's just stop walking into ambushes.
You know what? Give me the Matrix. You'll give it back to you when you earn it. Okay? Like,
Exactly.
keep it warm for you. Don't
Just
worry
watch
about
this
it.
for you.
But it's so funny, and I'm just kind of thinking about now how like certain things that we've touched on already, and like working with a 80s legacy franchise that is Transformers or GI Joe, and Star Wars and things like that. And there's this long time attribution, and it's kind of like a quote unquote boys only club, and it's a toy series that is marketed for boys. It was created by a creative team that was largely comprised of men. And while times have changed and we are seeing this shift, we are, we're still getting into this, and there still is that unfortunate association. So, can you just like speak to breaking into that space as a woman, whether it be creatively or as a fan or both? Because, it's just awesome.
I'm doing our structure, guys. I'm sorry. I
Go
don't
for
mean
the
to interrupt.
structure. I
Go
love
for
the
it.
structure.
I'll say I often reflect on how lucky I am to be coming into the industry at this point in history. Because in my little corner of Transformers Cyberverse, from the get-go, the team, from the other writers to our producers to the toy side of things, we're very adamant about including more female representation, more female characters. So there is that was no longer a discussion that had to happen. Like that was not a fight that needed to be fought. And it's an amazing thing to be able to be like, okay, I am representing something that is increasing value in the eyes of the powers that be, and that's wonderful. But there's always more work to be done. Like despite that immense welcome and that desire for representation, that desire to properly represent, if you look at the writing credits for seasons 2 and 3, I think I'm the only woman still.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be pushing these things, and hopefully, not to toot my own horn, but hopefully I'm making it a little bit easier for people to come after me. But there's always room to grow, and hopefully we can pitch in and help that along.
Yes, exactly.
Like for me personally, I did not have any contact with Western media until I was like 13 or something. So I did not actually grew up in a sense that something was made for boys. Like I came into Western media like a actually fully developed person. I was just like, oh, I like this. I'm taking this. Oh, I like this. I'm like investing into this. Like I've been reading a lot of stuff, and I never like felt that I did not belong. So I think I'm like supremely lucky in that sense. So I did not had any sense that I had to earn my place in the fandom, especially as a fan of Transformers IDW comics, because there's been so many amazing women before me, like Kay Zama, Sarah Petretti-Rocher, Sarah Stone, Margaret Scott. There's been a long legacy of women working on Transformers. I just feel like I have to live up to what's been done by extremely qualified people with a long and personal history with Transformers, that I'm just like, yeah, I gotta like rise up to that level. No, but
Exactly.
Also what is supremely important is to have representation of women and non-binary and queer characters in the media itself, as creators and as characters, just like existing. not like living their own
What?
I know,
what a
right?
concept.
Like, especially with plots that are not centered on their identity. Just like let them live in the world. Like
Yeah, let
as
them just
normal
be a
people do.
character. Yeah,
Like, hey, just make them a woman. Like, nothing's
Yeah.
going to be ruined. Just like add more
Yeah,
women.
yeah, it's not a big
you
deal.
say that. You say that. You know it's true. I know
we
it's
say
true. We
that.
probably all know it's true. And yet sometimes there's just you're gonna end up finding someone who is just like, no, this is a huge deal to me.
I mean, look at us. We're like all extremely motivated, capable women who've been like busting their own bottoms to get into the industry and like doing hard at it, and like going really hard at it. And just like, why not get like some representation of it? But also, what I think is really important, to have like women characters who just like lazy and no good and just like plain old bastards.
allowing
So
the full
it's
breadth
true.
of
The messy
humanity.
Yeah, I mean,
represented by
like when
women,
you
yeah.
put an entire gender into this box of being a paragon, of being like a virtuous vessel, and just like, you're missing out on so much fun stuff.
Exactly.
I agree. I mean, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, this is why like Jessica Jones is one of my favorite characters, because that girl
She's
is
great.
she is a hot mess, you know, let me tell you. But no, the same thing she was just saying is that Anna was saying is like, we need representation, like, you know, here in the entertainment industry. It's like, yeah, things have gotten a lot better, but Me Too and Time's Up still hasn't made a huge difference. The majority of the writers and the producers and the directors and the creatives are all men and mostly white cis males. So we need to get those, and we talked about this on my panel, Lita, is like, we need to get those underrepresented voices out there. And it's like, as much as I love Alita, she really is the only female character in the show. I mean, like Chromia has like 2 lines, RC has a couple lines, and it's like, in the comics, at least like Alita's got her own fembot army. And it's like, you know, can we not have the token female? Can we have, you know, women are 55% of the population? So why aren't we at least 50% of all the casts out there? And it's like, I don't understand. But like, I'm also I am definitely the oldest person here. So I claim to be a Gen Xer, and I'm like, I remember I was a tomboy growing up. So it's like, I remember having to just be like, stupid boys, I'm going to like Star Wars and you can't stop, you know, that whole thing. So, you know, getting rid of the gatekeepers, and it's like, I remember Gamergate really well. And like, I have a lot of female friends who are game devs and had to deal with so much bullshit. And especially like, again, because I love video games, it's my passion, and, you know, still seeing how male dominated that is, and both, you know, female representation within characters, but then also female representation in the industry itself. And it is getting better, but there's still so much to do. And
What's fascinating that I see on the writer side of things is like, there is as far as I can tell, a sincere and earnest and authentic desire for representation by like the powers that be. But that desire doesn't always, like, the implementation of that desire is where it sometimes falls apart. And that is there. So I'm happy that there are people out there who are like, no, I really want to do this and I really want to push for this. And we're just in a stage where like, we're not quite sure, or, you know, the powers that be aren't quite sure how to implement that. And they don't know how to implement that, even if you're standing right there going like, no, I know. You got to trust me. I know how to do it. And
again, it's a novel
that's
concept.
the current uphill battle that I face.
And specifically within geekdom, like, there's still that idea that, oh, girls don't like geeky things, so we're not going to make geeky movies or comics or whatever with female characters because nobody's going to watch that. And it's like, what?
Girls created the fandom.
You're saying that to me. My favorite bit at a con was a guy asking me what my favorite Star Trek was, and I was like, "Oh, TOS." And he's like, "No, if you'd seen TOS, you would like this." And I'm like, "Oh, I've seen TOS, and that's why I don't like this, good sir."
Deep Space Nine, baby.
Yeah. Oh, it's you know, because I'm a big Whovian, and I, you know, people are like, "Oh, so who's your favorite Doctor?" And I'm like, you know, 2, and they're like, 2. And I'm like, yeah, Doctor Who didn't start with Matt Smith, thank you very much. And they're like, oh, you've actually like watched all the Doctor Who. I'm like, yeah, I have.
My favorite is Christopher Eccleston. I think it's
Oh
nice.
no, I love no. David Tennant is my favorite, but I love Patrick Troughton because we wouldn't have David Tennant Doctor without Patrick Troughton Doctor. This is a whole other panel. It's fine.
It's a whole other thing. Whole other thing. But I love it though, and it's like it's so important. And you know, it really does come down to that central discussion of representation. And you know, Linsay, you and I, we touched on that during the Spotlight Alita 1 panel last night. And the importance of seeing yourself in the characters, in the stories, and also in that professional sphere as well. So, you know, what I'm interested in is like each of your thoughts on having like, why is having a larger female presence in Transformers so important? Like not only in the traditional sense of stories, characters, toys, but also in that professional aspect.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, to get I don't want to get galaxy brain too quickly, but like when you when you are a franchise that is as old as Star Wars, like coming up on 40, like the perpetuation and the sustainability of that franchise requires it to change and requires it to adapt to what is a modern audience. And that means acknowledging that there are 55% of the human race is not just these guys. And
with a disposable income, by the way, like
yeah. And like, look, I think, and IDW 1 definitely touches on this, but like, I also just personally am like, why do they have gender at all? Their trucks and jets and cars. And the only reason they have any notion of that is because we give it to them. And thus we should represent ourselves through that. So it's not only about like sustaining the franchise, but it is also about like, you know, this thing is so old. It is obviously striking a chord in people and is deeply meaningful to people. And why would you deny somebody else the opportunity to partake in that meaning and that love and that affection? And seeing, you know, again, if you saw yourself or if you saw your father in Optimus Prime and you saw yourself in those cartoons, why on earth would you want to deny someone else the opportunity to see themselves? But that means that the characters have to transform to accommodate.
Well played.
Yeah, they need to accommodate other audience members because I mean, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
do it.
The, you know, biologically speaking and philosophically speaking, yeah, there's not much difference between men and women, but we live in society and society makes it different and it forces us to have different experiences. And those experiences should be represented in our media. Like we learn to see ourselves in media and we learn how to be ourselves through media. Like I also, Linsay, I was a tomboy. And what examples did I have but just like the one girl on every show? And it's fascinating because I actually...
Who ends up being the love interest half the time anyway.
All the time.
Like, come on.
Honestly,
but like,
same.
I
like
really...
I have...
Oh,
go ahead. I really came into like my own feminist awakening because I was always a tomboy who always got along with guys, and then suddenly I was put in a professional setting with only men, and I kind of had this feminist awakening of seeing those differences that for so long I hadn't seen because suddenly we were trying to make a TV show, and that's different than just hanging out with your friends. And I had a super positive experience on Transformers, don't get me wrong, but it was like this moment of me being like, oh, I am a woman and that means something, and I have to, there is, you know, some not burden, but there is responsibility on my end to make sure that I acknowledge that and try to do my best representing what I can of that experience. Whew, there you go.
No, but Anna, I think you were going to raise a point there for a second.
No, I was trying to say that I was tomboy as well because once I was a kid.
Of course we all were.
Yeah, I fought a policeman's horse once. A legit duel the horse, so... But yeah, like speaking of representation in Transformers, like there's such a thing that they are removed enough as a franchise from like human condition for it to be a great playground to express different ideas in a lot of senses. Like you can inject a lot more gore and emotional trauma on the characters because they're like not humans and they can probably survive that, but also they are removed of a genetic sexual dimorphism, so a lot of things are like not present at all, and it's kind of a safe space because sexual violence is not present in Transformers at all. Like it's such a beautiful notion.
Yeah.
I mean, like
that's not
women's
a thing
shirts
they have
instead.
to fear. That's
Yeah.
not a thing they think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can apply that fear to anything else and make the story still relatable. What I was talking about, but yeah, like female condition and like gender condition is always different for everybody. Like everybody has their own experience, and it's so important to even like not have like one token woman or have like 10 women who are like similar, but like have different voices and different representations and like different body types and character types, so that like there is a variety. Variety is a spice of life. And you know, like what's important not only for women to recognize that girls in media are like viable media capital, but also for boys to see different women and start to treat them as characters, as like real people. Well, not real people in the sense that like fictional characters are real, but like girls around them are real.
Yeah.
And they can get mean, and they have dumb jokes, and like they can do stupid stuff and get and like all sorts of emotions, but also they're like very, very real and cannot be discounted.
Yeah. I mean, I think that honestly, gender stereotypes are like the most damaging thing that exists in society, and especially, you know, obviously all societies, but you know, Western societies specifically, that we're living in. You know, I hate the notion of girl things and boy things. It's like, why can't we like both things? And it's like, okay, now it's acceptable for girls to like boys things, but what about boys and male identifying liking girls things? Like, again, I hate the fact that they're separated to begin with, but this whole concept that like certain people can only like certain things, just it like makes no sense to me. And especially when you have a franchise like Transformers, where we've all said is like, they're robots. It's like, all the female Transformers are much thinner and smaller than the male Transformers. Lita 1's got this hip swagger going on. Don't get me wrong, like, she looks great. And like Polygon Pictures did amazing work on this art. I love it so much. But like the first time I saw the show, it's like, she's got this like, she's got hips, she's got a swagger. And I'm like, Optimus Prime doesn't have hips. He doesn't have a
she really noticed she was pink.
Yeah, she really needs those childbearing hips for some
to be a robot.
Load
but
oh, I
mean, as a pansexual, I highly appreciate those hips, but also as a woman, I'm like, come on, not again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have been really you know, it has been really encouraging though, because like for people to see like Lita in a leadership position, she's not just the love interest, she's not just the sidekick. That I've had friends who were like, oh my God, my son loves this show so much. And I'm like, yay. You know, I'm like sending an autographed picture to my friend who reached out. He's like, it's my son's birthday and this is his favorite character. And I was like, I love you. He's like, can I pay you? I was like, no, I'm sending this to you just for fun because I love it. But I think, you know, the more we can see gender equality and gender neutrality in the media, I think the more it'll be acceptable in, you know, in real life. And we won't have people, you know, claiming that you can only like or be certain things. And yeah.
No, 100%. And it really does like start with all of us, like, you know, in that fan sphere, like even just looking at fandom, like whenever I go to a Transformers convention or even just Comic-Con, you know, like there are so many women and, you know, not even just like that gender bias of like, you know, male, female, but like everyone on the spectrum, everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. And it's sad that we have something that is so diverse and so wide reaching and other than our human norms, that is Transformers, and we haven't explored it to that depth and potential, you know. I mean, the comics did it fantastic, and that's one of the reasons I think they really resonate with the fandom, is because they did go that distance. They did introduce those concepts, you know, and it would just be fantastic if that can move over to the screen now. But you know, Mae, your work on Cyberverse really also helped push that needle as well.
Oh, thank you.
It's just like, it's fantastic, and I could just geek out about it all day, you know.
Yeah, no, I feel like the Cyberverse team, we were aware that we were getting a little bit more freedom than other shows have gotten in many regards, and you know, it's an exciting thing to be able to be like, I think we're pushing something and we're doing the right thing, pushing it forward, and like God hopes like we can just keep doing that until we get to a place where we can be, you know, as diverse as we know the fandom is, and we know that these characters can be.
Exactly.
Thank you so
And
much for Shadow Striker. I'm just
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I must give that over to the season 1 team, which included Kate Leth, because I came in after Shadow Striker, but boy was I
Still.
happy as well. I came in like,
Still perfection.
oh my god, the creative team was so happy to be like, look at her, she's as tall as Optimus Prime, and I'm like, whoa, what a woman.
That's a whole lot of robot. And that's like something I've always wanted from Lita as well. Like she was tall in War for Cybertron.
she's supposed to be big.
Yes.
Like the scene when she has the scene with Optimus in season 1, she's like this, and then in season 2 when she's with Megatron, she's like, oh well, I don't know if we can swear on this, but you know, she's like this lithe little thing looking up at Megatron, and she's still just like, whatever, dude, I'm not joining you. Bring it. And then when she's, you know, she's fighting at the end, I'm like, she really is like not even half their size. She's like a quarter of their size.
Yeah.
Like,
We had the same design of Lita from Hasbro for the comics on our side, and every time me and Beth were drawing her, we were like, let's bulk her a little bit, like let's just make her more angular, like let's
muscle mass.
like let's just make an angle where her eyesight is on the same level as Megatron and like
Yes.
stuff. Because she's supposed to be like this big, mean, very professional military leader, and just like you can't take seriously a person who doesn't take seriously themselves. And
yeah.
And you know, it's funny, like we knew Alita would come up because Lindsay's here, and also you guys know me at this point, but you know, like she was such this inspiration for me, like growing up as a little girl. And you know, kind of going back to that, you could see that. And you know, like I have a younger brother, I had, you know, boy cousins and stuff, so you know, I wasn't adverse to the fact that this is a boy's toy. My parents were very much like what you like what you love, you know. But it's always
mine were the same way.
I love that. And I wish, and I do think that that is happening more and more. Like, you know, there's just so many other people. And, you know, anecdotally going to Universal Studios, like the amount of little girls I see running up to the Transformers ride, wanting their picture with Optimus and just living their best lives is the most like amazing feeling I've ever had. And
dude,
ever seen.
The week I started at Hasbro for Transformers Cyberverse, my fiance works in theme parks, so we just happened to be at Universal.
Oh my god!
And they have that little store now that is next to the Transformers ride that had.
My friend works in that store.
Oh my god! We all have to go.
When it never been to a theme park. I'm so jealous.
It didn't have any Transformers Cyberverse toys yet, but it had toys. And I watched as this little girl, God, she must have been like under 6 or at 6. She grabbed a Windblade toy, and I knew Windblade was like the lead in Cyberverse. So I went up to her, like, you know, cooling it with her parents, like, I'm here, don't worry. I see you, I'm not doing anything. And I went up to her and I'm like, that's Windblade. She is so cool. And like to encourage her. And this little girl looked at me and was just like, yeah, I know. Like I'm trying to have this moment with her. And she's like light years ahead, like, yeah, that's why I'm buying it.
Yes.
I know.
Oh my god, I love that. The future generation is in good hands. Like,
yes.
but that is so funny. And you know, that is such an important thing. Like, you know, with this shift of like, you know, having more representation, like these like female characters that, you know, little girls can look up to and see themselves in and model themselves after, as well as little boys. I'm not going to exclude anyone here because you idol who you idol. I am for it. But what do you think it means to have that inspiration and to have that for them and be creating that inspiration through your work, like through the art, through the writing, and through the character you portray?
Oh boy. I mean, I kind of touched on it before, but like you learn how to be yourself through the things you witness. Like that's why, you know, you can shrug your shoulders and be like, oh, it's just pop culture, but it's not. Like that's why a 40-year-old franchise is still deeply meaningful to people, is because you in a way learn how to be who you want to be through those examples. And just to be able to give a wider example of how to be a person, how to be a good person, or how to be, you know, a sneaky person, or how to be an Autobot or a Decepticon, like that means the world to me to be able to do. Like a common method of pitching, like when I go out to pitch either an original show or like a hot take on existing IP, usually my in will be like, well, what would I have needed this show to be as a kid? What would I have needed for myself? Because I can see as an adult all the ways that the media I consumed messed me up or helped me or hampered me. And I desperately needed shows to show me, you know, like I am fully aware I am midway through a gender journey and I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I do know I could have had a lot more help in my youth with these things. And like, it's extremely comforting to know that I can hopefully help someone a little bit along the way.
I was a kid, like not exactly a kid, but around the age of 13 to 16 to 17, like this formative age. I thought the idea of a woman was like long-haired, blonde, wearing silk pants and cardigans, never looking up into a person with whom she's talking to eyes, and being very demure and very constricted. Also because like I come from a society where there's like more or less a very gendered idea of women, even though like 80 years of Soviet history was all about like women being equal to men. But while I was growing up, there was like, there's only one way to be a woman and everything else is deviation. And God forbid you have any gender questioning things in your head, like, God, you're immediately ostracized and even criminalized. So recognizing myself as like being very unapologetic, being very loud and brash, and loving like bright colors, and well, loving my weight, because there's not a lot of that. There's like more or less one body type presented in the media right now, and you just like realize that you hate yourself, and then you start slowly unlearning that. You start to this long process of being more sure in what you are and being more comfortable with that, because like you can't live a fulfilling life if you hate what you are. And it's so important to have media examples because without them you will feel like a freak.
Well, it's so true. I mean, it's like, you know, I obviously, like when I was a kid, we didn't have streaming, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have everything we have now. And so, you know, your examples were where you lived, what you saw around you, the playground. Like I was lucky, I was raised in a very gender neutral household. It was fantastic, but not everybody is that lucky. And nowadays with kids, everything is social media, everything is the media. And it's so they are getting socialized through entertainment on a daily basis. And, you know, if they're living somewhere, maybe very metropolitan, New York, LA, you know, identifying as something as other, you know, isn't maybe necessarily as outside of the box. But like if you're somewhere in a much smaller town, or, you know, where there aren't those types of examples in real life, then the media is the only place you can see that. And like Anna was just saying, like if you don't see yourself represented in life, in entertainment, then you do think you're a freak. And even along with that, your community thinks it's weird. So, you know, if you are identifying as LGBTQ plus or whatever, but nobody in your town is, and, you know, they're not going to be open. So it's like the media has a real opportunity to showcase all of the diversity that is in this world. And if we are still perpetrating stories that are still white cis male Christian, like that's just what everybody's going to see, and they're going to continue to feel like they don't belong. But, you know, every time we get someone in the media, you know, and I hate that it makes a big splash, but it's like Laverne Cox was huge for trans representation in the media. And it's like every time we can get someone and just move a little inch forward, it can have such a big impact on everybody. But we still need that below the line. We need those folks, those creatives who are pushing these stories out to just let people know, hey, it's okay. We're here. I mean, would we have gotten Batwoman 10 years ago? Would we have gotten, you know, Dreamer 10 years ago on television? Probably not. So the fact that we have made progress is great, but we still need to keep going.
Yeah.
There's always room to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's always there's always, you can always demand more. Like I
Oh,
have
yeah.
that internal conversation all the time of like, I should be happy. This is a triumph. I want more, and we deserve
Yeah.
more, and it will happen so long as we keep fighting and working and demanding.
Yeah, and it's
It's like,
just that
why not
constant
have a
fight.
woman? Why not have a non-binary person? Why not have a trans person present in
Yeah.
the media?
Well,
Why
like
not
you
have
said,
like 10
and
of them?
body
Like
images,
half the cast.
yeah.
Yes.
Like we are all like,
Yeah.
it's like, especially in television and film, it's like the guys are all over the place. Like you got
Yeah.
overweight guys, you got, you know, older. They always have a young, skinny, hot wife. And it's like, really? I mean, you know, there's
Tired.
obviously exceptions, but yeah, body types, disabilities. It's like,
Ugh, neurodivergent people, like how
Yeah.
beautiful. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
And I know,
There's
I
so
love
many
how
other
Anna,
different
you're just
types.
like, why not? And I'm like, we know that. It's
Yeah, exactly.
It
Spoken,
shouldn't
we
be
know.
more of
I
a
mean,
discussion
the
than
more
why not.
makers.
us there are, like the more us as creators there are, like the more this question will be like viable, just like will not
Yeah,
deem
or even
a
obsolete.
justification. Yeah, you just like, I'm just gonna put them there and nobody's going to say anything.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. So I was working on Spider-Man 2, and you know, it's a very, I mean, video games are a very team effort, and obviously a lot of people involved. You know, there was quite a few different writers. One of the writers was a queer woman, which was amazing. And then, you know, they introduced, if no one's played Spider-Man 2, hopefully this isn't spoilers, but like there's deaf characters in the video game, and like we were on the mocap stage and we were
Yes,
mocapping
good.
deaf performers. Like all of that ALS was legit motion capture. And I had a really interesting conversation with one of the devs, and he was like, you know, I read this article that the way we need to represent in entertainment is that you need to look at a public bus in a major metropolitan area, and that's the diversity you need to show in your game. And he's like, we've worked really hard in Spider-Man 2 specifically. He's like, if you look at all the background characters, like we really took that to heart to try and have all of that diverse representation in the background. And granted, you know, it's still a very male dominated franchise, but the fact that people are having that conversation, but then, you know, I'm talking to another friend who was an animator on the show, and he's like, I'm one of only 2 Black people that actually worked on this game. And it's like, oh, and he's like, and Sony realized this, and they were having diversity meetings and all of that. But it's like, okay, good, we're making progress here, but we still got to make progress here. But at least people were having the conversation, which
Yes.
is
No, the desire's there. The implementation is where it gets a little
exactly.
iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, in that line as well, it's looking at these careers that you have and looking at this influence and this inspiration you have been as well. Like, it's just incredible. And it's like, you have to relish it at the same time. And even though we still have to keep fighting and, you know, never stop fighting for not only our representation for people who are like us, but for others, for our friends, for our family, for people we love, who we don't see, and we need to be allies for and with, you know? And, you know, just kind of looking at it, I think now would be a really great time to just kind of ask, like, what is your advice to up and coming creators?
Demand space. And that sounds very aggressive. And I don't necessarily, you know, if you have to be aggressive, but you don't have to be. But there are instances where, you know, you might be the only woman on a team, and, you know, everyone is welcoming. I've never met anyone maliciously against representation in my line of work, but I have been in situations that have been uncomfortable just because I am the only woman. And there is just, you know, they could be the greatest guys in the world, but there's nothing they can do to take away that discomfort.
Yeah.
But you have to demand that space of yourself, or of those areas, and not just demand the physical space, but demand the space to be who you are, and to be the woman, the non-binary, the queer person, however you identify, to be who you are in that space, and not given to, you know, unknown subconscious peer pressure to change that or alter that. Like, you're in that creative space, you're in that, for example, for me, for a writer's room, you're in there because there is value in your perspective. And it might not feel that way because of how slowly things change, but it's absolutely true. And that value, coupled with your talent, makes you an incredible asset to, particularly to franchises like this that need you to change and transform and perpetuate themselves. Yeah, it's hard and it's scary. but you can do it. Sorry, Anna.
Don't be apologetic about who you are. Like,
Yes.
don't try to
Yes.
tailor what you want to make according to what you see in the media. Like, always think what you as a person would like to experience, what you as a kid would like to experience, what you would like to see more. Like, don't try to tailor what you create to some perceived notion of how women, of how certain categories of people are supposed to be like. Like, live your life and enjoy it and show it to the world. Like, it's so important to actually enjoy what you create. Like, it's why people get hired. Not because they do high quality work, but because they live their passion. And this is always going to shine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I definitely agree. You have to refuse, you have to not accept no. And this applies to obviously entertainment. This applies to, you know, STEM, like women in engineering, women in math and science, and every industry that has just severe lacking in representation in a lot of things is only going to make that industry better if you have more equal representation, because people do bring different perspectives and, you know, different ideas and concepts and life experiences to that. And just don't ever say no. And just your mere presence can help open people's minds up to other ideas. Like, you know, when I was in the army, I was like the only one of the only women in my unit. And like, it took a while for the guys to get used to me, but finally they did. And they're like, oh, you really can carry your own weight. You're not a liability. Oh, okay. Well, then sure, you're just one of us. And that, you know, there was a hump to get over, but you get over it. But that's also why it's really important to have that representation in entertainment. Like, we need to see more women doctors, more women scientists, more women engineers, whatever it is. So again, that little girl on the playground can think, oh yeah, I want to be like, you know, that person, or I want to be an artist, or whatever it is. And the same thing with little boys. Like, again, we can't have little boys being like, oh, it's not cool to be a dancer, that's a girl's thing, or it's not cool to be a cook, or whatever it is. Again, getting rid of these gender stereotypes, which just only hurt everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly. And all it does is divide, and it doesn't need to be that way. Every voice is a valid voice, just as every person is a valid person. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that we're seeing happen in Transformers and also in other popular cultures, that we are seeing that needle start to shift. And it's because of people like all of you three who are helping to move that needle, who are being those voices in those rooms that are being heard. And you're bringing with you that tidal wave of new thinking and support and that openness to accept. And I think that's one of the most incredible things, and something that I admire greatly and am inspired by daily. I could go on about just that, but also, like, for everyone who is watching this as well, I don't think there's a single person who wouldn't look at you and be, I want to be like them, or I'm bold because of them. I want to be a Lita. I want to be a writer. I want to pursue my art and define it and be in those rooms. And I think that's the most important part of all of this, you know?
Here it is.
Truth.
I'm like gonna cry. I'm like just like so happy and so proud. This has been so good. And on that note, we are sadly out of time. And I'm so sad because I had so much fun talking with you and hearing all of your thoughts. And I just want to thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart for volunteering your time to be with me today, to be with all of us at IACON this weekend. And, you know, not only as a fan, but as a woman who works in Hollywood in the creative industry, it's such an honor to just sit down and hear from my peers and my colleagues, and for many others out there who are watching this as well, to get those different perspectives, which is sometimes kind of hard to do. It's a bit of a lonely place, especially right now. So, you know, thank you so much. And let's see those hands up in the chat, folks. Like, give these women a hand. My
Thank
God.
you so much for having us.
Yes. And also, all of you watching, please go and support Mae, Anna, and Linsay's work, not only in Transformers, but their other projects as well. Information on those can be found on their guest page, bios, social media, pretty much anywhere. Women supporting women. We love to see it. Anyways, that's going to do it for us. Thank you everyone for watching this stream. Make sure to stick around. We have lots of good stuff coming up for you. Up next is the universal greeting celebrating diversity in Transformers, a subject we only just touched the tip of the iceberg on. You'll see Mae on that one. I'm Lita, along here with Mae Catt, Anna Malkova, and Linsay Rousseau. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Till all are one.
Till all are one.
One.
Yes.
One.
See you guys.